Yes, that for you. Buon pomeriggio a tutti.
Good afternoon, everybody. If you could kindly take your seats, we're about to begin. I'd like to welcome and immediately give the floor to Madam Pavi.
Grazie mille, Honorable Lupi, Maurizio Lupi. It's a great honor to be here, and good afternoon, distinguished participants. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this high-level panel on countering hatred based on religion or belief, de-escalating polarization, preventing dehumanization, and religious weaponization. My name is Shafak Pavey, and I'm honored to be co-moderating actually our discussion today with Honorable Maurizio Lupi, who happens to be also, we happen to be also former deputy speakers of our parliaments, respective parliaments. And briefly, before he sheds light on the topic at hand, let me say a couple of words about myself, as well as outline why the topic we will be discussing is very much matters to the work of parliaments worldwide. My position currently, just a personal introduction perhaps to get to know each other, is that I'm former Deputy Speaker of Turkish Parliament and a Member of Parliament for 3 terms. But before that, I've been working also for the United Nations in different positions, mainly in humanitarian, human rights and peace building in the field across the globe. But currently I'm representing United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees as Special Envoy. And this is exactly why I'm also seated here, because we very much believe, at the face of these unprecedented numbers that we are facing with the eruption of conflicts, displacement, climate change, and multiple factors. We are currently looking at, just in the margin of, in 2 days' time, there will be the World Refugee Day, and we will be announcing the numbers again. We are looking at the unprecedented numbers of displaced people, mainly by the conflicts, persecution, and wars. 123 million that we are facing. And vis-à-vis that, in the contrary, the humanitarian funding is decreasing. So for us, looking at this root solutions, root causes, and long-lasting solutions to find a way of actually preventing displacement in the first place is crucial for our mandate. And I would like to turn to my co-moderator, Honorable Maurizio Lupi. Grazie.
Thank you very much, and I wish to thank my colleague, Ms. Pavi, who is the co-moderator of this first panel of ours, a panel we have organized together with the Interparliamentary Union. Together with President Casini and the other colleagues, I'm Vice President of the Italian IPU group. We have worked together to choose a major problem for this panel of ours, which is countering hatred based on religion or belief, de-escalating polarization, preventing dehumanization and religious weaponization. As we heard in the introduction, a number of things have already been said, and those topics will guide us in our discussion together with the various speakers we'll be hearing. The President of the Chamber of Deputies quoted Leo XIV when he urges us to build bridges instead of dividing. Faith is a light which unites us, as we heard in the introduction. We have to strengthen trust and embrace hope, and a tangible one at that. In these brief remarks, let me go back to something which Mr. Casini already mentioned when he quoted John Paul II in Assisi. That meeting was the very first opportunity to promote a dialogue between religions, and it proved that faith unites us. John Paul II said that we share a common respect and obedience to our conscience with all of the other world religions. It urges us to search for the truth. It urges us to love and serve all individuals and all peoples. It urges us to promote peace amongst individuals and nations. Although there may be many and important differences between us, we also share something. And we need to work together to solve the dramatic challenges of our times. We need to promote peace instead of war. And in our differences, we may have also realized that when it comes to peace and when it comes to our religious commitment, there is always something which unites us. End of quote. I think that is the value we share. That is also something that we are currently dealing with today here in Rome during this second meeting of our Conference on Interfaith Dialogue. That's the topic we'll be debating, and together with Madam Pavi, I'm very happy to moderate this session. I'll be happy to introduce our speakers, and I look forward to hearing to your contributions.
We are, of course, joined on the podium by a distinguished group of experts and distinguished speakers. Before introducing them, let me cover how today's session will unfold, some of the ground rules. Each panelist will actually deliver a concise presentation to start with, roughly 4 to 5 minutes, based on their expertise and thoughts. They will reflect on the session's theme and explore how it relates to parliamentary roles and responsibilities. After that, I'll open the floor to questions and comments from the audience that we are looking at the second hour. Well before the conference, we have asked participants to register their interest to speak at this high-level panel, and delightfully we have received many. Now the list is closed, but we are really very happy to see the interest. Also bearing in mind the time constraints, we have closed the list. However, it will be also possible for any additional participants to ask the floor if we have time pending. So, and a little bit of flexibility there. However, we will also ask for the floor participants to really restrict it to 2 to 3 minutes maximum. Let me turn back to Mr. Lupi, who will introduce our first panelist.
So thank you, and let's now begin our discussion. And we can now give the floor to our first speaker, our first very important speaker, His Eminence Cardinale George Jacob Koovakad. Cardinal Koovakad is the prefect of the Dicastero for Interreligious Dialogue, the Vatican's main body to promote interreligious dialogue. He was appointed in 2023, and he has a key role in promoting the Holy See's global commitment, together with other faiths, in fostering mutual understanding. Your Eminence, you have the floor.
Signor Presidente della Camera dei Deputati,
Mr. President of the Chamber of Deputies, Mr. President of the Senate, Madam President of the Interparliamentary Union, honorable parliamentarians, distinguished guests, I'd like to begin my remarks with a brief introduction regarding the development of the Dicastero for Interreligious Dialogue, as I think it can help us understand how dear this topic is to the Church. The Dicastero was created in 1964, following the initiative of St. Paul VI. As some of you may remember, in those years, the Catholic Church was involved in a major renewal effort, which was the Second Vatican Council. It was a very broad ecclesial event which embraced all of the dimensions of faith and the Church's teachings. It began in October 1962, and it then ended on the 8th of December of 1965. In that context, the Nostra Aetate Declaration was drafted, with which the fathers of the Council began with words which were deeply profound and which still ring true in this day and age. And let me quote them. In an era in which humanity is increasingly joined with an increasing interdependence among peoples, The Church wishes to examine the nature of its relations with non-Christian religions. Its duty is to promote unity and charity among men and among peoples, and it considers all things human beings share, pushing them to live together in a common destiny. This new configuration of the world posed and still poses a number of questions regarding the role of religions in the global scenario. The fathers of the Council prophesied that the emergence of new players and new balances could lead to new conflicts, even those fought for religious beliefs. That's what led to the Secretariat for Non-Christians and the Apostolic Letter of Paul VI and the Pentecost of 1964, while the Council was still happening, outlined its structure. These are specialists which were guided by divine charity, aware of their mission in terms of promoting unity in an era in which, among human beings of all race, language, and religion, a number of relations were being created. In the following decades, St. John Paul II, and most recently, Pope Francis, renewed this desire to promote an interreligious dialogue, which was its fundamental mission, along with promoting mutual understanding, respect, and cooperation between Catholics and the followers of other religious traditions. They encouraged studying religions, promoting education of people with a vocation to dialogue, which brings me to the topic we are discussing today, which is hate in the name of God. And I have a question for you, which may already be implicitly expressed in the invitation to this high-level panel. That question is, can dialogue be a tool which leads to peace among people? Can it be a remedy to religious conflict? And in order to answer the question, first of all, we have to specify a number of things. Interreligious dialogue can in no way replace those who exercise government responsibilities on the global level in their commitment to ending war, the wars which are also being fought in the name of religion. What dialogue can do is it can clearly state that hate is incompatible with any authentic religious experience. Therefore, we have to reiterate the fact that any human being has received a unique and inviolable dignity from God. All peoples have a number of inalienable rights. We have to reiterate that serving others means growing together in our humanity. And through dialogue, we can assert that the role of religion is, by definition, a role of peace. And it can never be a reason leading to destruction. Destruction always stems from a perversion of religion, that of using God to justify slaughters and brutality. That is a religious perversion, and it is morally inadmissible. A war in the name of God is never acceptable, and as believers, we all have the moral duty of testifying to that by striving towards an encounter despite our differences, so that we can be real players in promoting a communion and unity. Pope Leo XIV underlined this topic when speaking to the diplomatic corps to the Holy See. He mentioned justice and truth. He mentioned the common journey we have embarked upon, and he also reiterated that the Catholic Church wishes to promote humanity in the service of the family of peoples. And he also offered, when it comes to these processes, the Holy See's contribution. The Holy See is always inspired by a pastoral sense of urgency, without the desire to achieve a privilege. In fact, it wants to go along in its evangelical mission to serve humanity. based on its century-old diplomatic experience, which is a precious tool and which is an expression of the Church itself. And let me conclude by mentioning his words of conclusion when referring to the current year of Jubilee, which are more broadly applicable to the current international context. And I quote, "This is a time of conversion and renewal. It is an opportunity to leave our conflicts behind with the hope that together we can build, each of us according to our sensitivity and responsibility, so that we can build a world in which we can all achieve our humanity in truth, peace, and justice. May this be our common hope." Thank you very much for your kind attention.
And yet, it is my pleasure to now introduce His Excellency Dr. Ali Rashid Al-Nuaimi, who is the founder and chairman of Manara Center for Coexistence and Dialogue, member of the United Arab Emirates Federal National Council. Dr. Al-Nuaimi is a global advocate for peace and countering extremism. He also chairs Hedaya, the International Center for Excellence for Countering Violent Extremism. Dr. Al-Nuaimi occupied several senior positions in the IPU and is a champion of parliamentary diplomacy. Honorable Al-Nuaimi, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, dear colleagues, I think we are very fortunate here. We are here to talk about, in this session, about hate. But I think we have a great opportunity where we can activate the parliamentarian diplomacy and the religious diplomacy to do so. And this is where it's very important that each side in this whole understand their role, their responsibility, and have the courage, to move forward and engage. One of the main principles of the IPU is dialogue. And I think we, as representative people and also as faith leaders, we need to engage in dialogue. Because, actually, whenever you don't know the other side, you become scared or frightened. You don't want to deal with them because you don't know them. But once you start having a dialogue with them, sending the right message, building bridges of trust, respect, and understanding, through that, you will be able to create initiatives, program, and engage in countering the main threat that we face as humanity. Hate, we believe in the UAE, it should be considered a crime, regardless of the source or the audience. Because at the end, hate is an enemy of humanity. And here we see the role of member of parliament, that they have the responsibility of creating the right laws and legislation to criminalize hate. At the same time, there is the responsibility of faith leaders to promote coexistence. All faith, they have great values in them. What we need is to have a dialogue and listen to each other. Share responsibility to counter the main threat and the common threat. And this is where I think, because of such an event that we are having today, we need to proceed not only by declaration, but by initiatives, program. We should have the courage to work based on prevention, through our educational system, religious narratives, laws and legislation, to immune the new generation from being hijacked by a hate narrative that will divide us. We have here faith leaders, but at the same time, there is those who present themselves as representative of all religion, but they want to drag us to a religious war, where there is no winner in that. We all will lose. And this is where it's our responsibility not to leave a vacuum, to allow those who want to divide us to fill that vacuum. No, we should have the courage and work based on prevention and engage to create a better future for all humanities. My colleague, religious leaders, you will not be able, through the globalization that we are facing now, to create a better future for your follower only. You have to bear the responsibility of all humanity. And this is where it's our responsibility to invest in the coexistence value that bring us together, to use dialogue as a tool to do so, and make sure that hate is a crime, that hate is a serious threat to all of us, to all humanity. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you. And now we would like to introduce Rabbi David Rosen, who is the chief rabbi and interfaith leader. He is a special interfaith advisor at the Abrahamic Family House in Abu Dhabi, and he is the co-president of Religions for Peace. He is a global advocate of Jewish, Christian and Muslim dialogue and interfaith understanding. Unfortunately, because of the recent events in the Middle East and the closing of airspace, Rabbi David Rosen was unable to come to Rome and therefore is not able to be with us here. And he will be speaking to us from his home in Jerusalem. He, in fact, recorded his own contribution, and we will be listening together to the video contribution that he has made.
Famous passage in Al-Hujurat in Surah 49, verse 13. While there are many different activities that take place within societies, most people don't know about them. And most people don't get even any opportunity to be able to see that there are constructive engagements and that indeed the religions themselves really do want to be able to play a constructive role for the well-being of society. It is here that Parliament and parliamentarians have a particular role to play. All the recommendations of the Marrakesh communique are particularly important, and I don't know to what degree these are followed up in any kind of report to see to what extent these are implemented. But one thing I would particularly recommend is the engagement of media. The engagement of media so that people can get to know about positive initiatives and can get to know the different communities, whether it's around a calendar event or a particular issue. And therefore I would really encourage parliamentarians to take the initiative to meet with national media in order to encourage them to engage religious leadership or to engage knowledge about the different religious communities that can educate communities and ensure that ignorance is combated and that stereotypes are rectified and that misrepresentation doesn't take place, so that societies at large may flourish and that religion and the different communities may contribute to the well-being of society at large. Thank you.
And yet, it is once again, my pleasure to introduce Archbishop Angelos, the Coptic Orthodox Archbishop of London. His Eminence is widely respected for his advocacy on religious freedom and human rights. He founded and chairs REFKEMI, the Church's Office for Advocacy and Public Policy, and was awarded an OBE for services to international religious freedom. In recent years, he has been very involved in dialogue initiatives of Wilton Park, which had a session together with Globe Ethics this morning as well, the dialogue body of the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. Archbishop, you have the floor.
There you go. Thank you, moderator. We are fighting with the microphone. There we go. We are reconciling with and dialoguing, exactly. Moderator, thank you very much. It is indeed a privilege to be with you all and to be speaking in this wonderful chamber. I must first thank the IPU and thank you all as policymakers and as parliamentarians. As we all know, this is a thankless role. You do what you can, as much as you can, but you will always end up being blamed by someone. And yet, it is only because of your commitment that you continue to do what you do. And that brings me to what I want to speak about here, and that is that we must be willing to work with one another and present solutions as religious leaders and religious representatives to be a support to policymakers, not a constant challenge. I suppose that then brings me to what is religion or belief? How do we look at it? First of all, it is a holistic way of life. It is not something that can be compartmentalized, and that is the problem in many parts of the world where we think we can deal with religion by itself and policy by itself and humanitarian aid by itself and reconciliation by itself. It doesn't work. For 80+% of the world's population, as we discussed this morning, and I'll come to that later, people see themselves as having a religion or belief. And so it becomes part of their identity and their ethos. And for many of that 80+%, they live in the Middle East, North Africa, and the global South, in which, and sub-Saharan Africa, in which religion is very much a part of the makeup, and so must be dealt with in that way. That makes us not only a vast majority of the world's population, it makes us collectively the biggest NGO in the world, a vehicle through which we can do good if we are able to work with one another and we are able to provide what one another needs. Of course, leadership in that context is important. Albert Einstein said something which I try to live by in my own ministry. He says, a clever person can resolve a problem. A wise person avoids it. And so if we are going to look at religious leaders and policymakers, it is not good enough for us to just come together when we want to resolve a problem. Of course, it's important for us to do so. But if we work together and if we collaborate, we can be part of an ethos that takes away dehumanization, that takes away hatred, and that puts forth a new narrative. We cannot replace one another, but we complement one another. Our roles are different, but complementary. We discussed this morning at our meeting the significance and the trust that is placed in religious leaders. And that is a wonderful thing that can be used as a force for good. Collaboration between us is no longer a luxury, it is an absolute necessity. And that is why we are gathered here in this chamber today. We need to fight against a narrative that says that religion is the cause of trouble. And if we distance ourselves from religion and distance religion from politics and policy making, then we no longer have a problem. In actual fact, religion, faith, belief is a significant and important part of the solution. And that is why we must continue to work together. We must, as religious leaders, have a prophetic voice, a voice that is a moral compass, that is unchanging, a voice that is stable, and that is honest. We need to be honest with each other in that sense. This morning we had this meeting of the Wilton Park initiative in which we spoke about this complementarity and how we work together. In closing, I just want to say this, that we are meant to work with each other. The world, if we look at it through God's eyes, is a series of systems, the seasons, the stars, the satellites, everything around us. We need to work together so that we can bring forth justice in the world. And that, as I said this morning, I close with something that is, unfortunately, something that I do as a religious leader, and I quote scripture. And if we go to the book of Micah, he says, "He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God." We need to do that. Justice, mercy, and humility together. Madam President challenged us earlier to 3 core things. And Madam, with others I'm sure in this chamber, we commit ourselves to those and look forward to our continuing journey together. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you. And we'll now hear from Imam Pallavicini, who is the chairman of the European Muslim Leaders Majlis and member of the European Council of Religious Leaders, Religions for Peace. Imam Pallavicini provides consultancy on religious dialogue, interfaith dialogue all over Europe. He is a key figure in the area of the integration of Muslims and the intercultural dimension in the West.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the merciful, and I'm happy to make reference to this holy name and attribute of God according to Islamic doctrine, because in Italy this year the Christians are experiencing the Jubilee of Hope, and Monsignor Fisichella is the delegate of Pope Leon on this value of hope, but he was also formerly the speaker of the Jubilee of Mercy. And again, you can see already in this first example how many common roots and how many orientations we can share among brothers and sisters in Christianity and in Islam and in other faith-based doctrines and communities. The reference to mercy, rahmah, the reference to hope this year, and we will be meeting, inshallah, on Saturday with Pope Leo as an exchange on this virtue. Now, I'm asked to try to contribute from a European perspective on the de-escalation of this polarization. And this is something that needs to be somehow framed in the relation between religious leaders and members of international and national parliament. And I would say that probably for what concerns religious leaders, as it was mentioned again by Archbishop Angelos, is the need to have a consistency in trying to interpret and update our reference to a prophetic voice. And if I may, I would not allow myself to say what parliamentarians should do, but allow me at least to say what they should not do. According to me, parliamentarians should not try to interpret a messianic voice. So religious leaders should be prophetic, and parliamentarians should not be messianic. What does that mean? It means that if we engage together with these standards, to interpret a prophetic voice for religious leaders means to be consistent with holy principles, means to be consistent with a famous document that was launched with the help of the Kingdom of Jordan to love God, love our neighbor, and love the common good. And this is, I think, even the three levels of love, which is much more than not hatred. So the solution for hatred is to learn together how to manage the love for God, the love for our neighbor, and the love for common good. It can be an example, and I think this was a success story in the approach of Islamo-Christian dialogue between the East and the West. So this can be a reference and can be a prophetic implementation of our roles in all religious communities, as all religious doctrines make reference to mercy and to hope. It also all doctrines make reference to love for a principle, for a truth, for common good, and also for our neighbors. So this is how we can interpret our action plan as religious leaders together and within our intra-faith challenges. Now, why I'm saying that the parliamentarians should not call for a messianic role? Because this is where, if I may say, the weaponization of religion is abused by some ideological movements and unfortunately also by some politicians who are not consistent with their secular role of managing their people, their land and life, and not murder, and not violence, and not terrorism. So this is how the abuse of a messianic dimension is leading us into a chaos of polytheism, where every identity is challenging one against the other, and it's going back to something that, according to the Islamic doctrine, has been erased by the revelation and by the mercy of prophethood. So this is, I think, the two levels of our reference to practice together a reference to love of our Lord, love of our tradition, love to the common good, with mercy and hope, and not playing the role of being one against the other as an exclusive patron of truth against the falsehood that one is going to accuse to the other. Thank you so much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
And yet, I have the great pleasure And yet, I have the great pleasure of turning to my dear colleague at the same time as also representing UN, Dr. Nazila Ghanea, UN Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Religion and Belief and Professor of International Human Rights Law at Oxford University. Her scholarship and United Nations mandate focus on advancing legal protections for religious freedom and combating discrimination worldwide. Dr. Ghanea, over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you to the IPU. Thank you to the co-panelists. It's a real pleasure to be here. The UN mandate on freedom of religion or belief is global in focus and has continued for the last 40 years. Regrettably, hatred based on religion or belief has consistently occupied both the mandate and the mandate holders over the decades. The manifestations of hatred that we are called upon to recognize and raise with authorities are many, be it through thematic reports to the UN General Assembly or the United Nations Human Rights Council, in country visits, communications, or the myriad other engagements, such as this one that I have the pleasure to be with you. One example that comes to mind in this part of the world are the attacks, the burnings of the Holy Quran in Europe. In other contexts, minorities such as Ahmadis are accused of defacing the Holy Quran and sentenced or face summary justice without any evidence. Other minorities too suffer above and beyond, even in dire war and conflict situations and humanitarian crisis situations. Even in these situations, the cynical scapegoating of minorities by the authorities is only too convenient to seek to absolve themselves of their shortcomings or failure to protect their populations. We recall the instances of mass atrocities, for example, against Yazidis, mob violence against Muslims, attacks on atheists or converts, and security threats against so many places of worship are now surrounded, have surveillance and have security, sometimes because of the suspicion of the authorities and sometimes for their own safety. My last report to the UN General Assembly addressed peace and freedom of religion or belief, considering peace as holistic and sustainable and contrasting it with violence, injustice and war. Another thematic report on the issue of advocacy of hatred based on religion or belief was presented at the UN Human Rights Council in 2024, allowing occasion to engage with states, faith-based actors and civil society more broadly about the topic and the trends relating to it. Sometimes the destruction of religious symbols, including the desecration of graves and places of worship, are the key examples of manifestations of hatred. There are also, regrettably, regular reports of direct threats and harassments against religion or belief minority groups, especially in moments of increased polarization, such as around elections or during religious holy days and festivals. The Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression, Irene Khan, noted only yesterday to the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva that vilifying minorities and marginalized groups, smearing women politicians, discrediting independent journalists, targeting electoral officials, delegitimizing electoral outcomes are worrying trends in many recent elections. Closely related to the issue of destruction of religious symbols is the mobilization of accusations of blasphemy, apostasy, or even lack of loyalty or espionage, including against minorities. Sometimes these accusations relate to concrete alleged acts, which can be false, yet spread like wildfire through social media, resulting in mob attacks and lynching. Indeed, the authorities get very excited when it's the mobs that attack and they stand by and take no action. However, in other cases, the very religious beliefs of certain groups, such as Baha'is or Christians, can be considered as blasphemy or apostasy, meaning that simply holding or manifesting their religion or belief serves as grounds for mobilizing violence against them. Conspiracy theories are also regrettably common, for example, relating to the replacement of one race or ethnic group with another, often the migrant population. Religion or belief may serve as the coded language to promote such xenophobic aims. How painful it is when it's allegedly in the name of religion or belief itself that hatred is perpetuated, as so many of my co-panelists drew attention to. Here, religion or belief minorities or migrants are painted as being criminal, as being less equal, accused with no evidentiary requirement. Such a cynical promotion of hatred can serve concrete political or economic ends. Restrictions on asylum or migration, daylight robbery of land and businesses, or to maintain the exclusion of a particular minority or caste from many arenas of work, or assign them to menial or dangerous work. It is indeed noticeable, I think that might be for me. It is especially noticeable how expressions of hatred and violence on this basis accompany periods of high tension. Here, the potential for parliamentarians to urgently address this trend becomes acute. A painful, particularly painful part of the work that you do must be to stand against the mobilization of religion as a justification for violence and hatred. I will stop here and perhaps have a chance to come back later. Thank you.
Grazie di cuore.
Thank you dearly. And last but not least now, we have Madam Uswatun Hasana, who is the founder of Eko Bhinneka Surakarta from Indonesia, and she is promoting environmental and interfaith initiatives that are youth-led. She makes an effort in order to strengthen peaceful coexistence through the environment and interfaith cooperation between different communities. Over to you, Madam.
Grazie. Okay. Honorable Parliament member, religious leader, and colleagues. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Uswatun Hasana. I come from Indonesia, a nation of more than 17,000 islands, 700 language, and hundreds of ethnics, and have 6 major religions followed by Indonesian. This is rich diversity is a source of strength, but also makes Indonesia deeply vulnerable to religious and cultural conflict if not handled with care. I'm a Muslim woman, a peace educator working in Muhammadiyah University Purwokerto, and activist working through Jisra, Eko Bhinneka, Muhammadiyah, grassroots movement that bridge different through interfaith and environmental action. This issue is deeply personal to me. I have seen how hate fueled by political narratives and digital disinformation can damage trust and resilience cooperation across community. In a diverse country like mine, where religious and cultural lines run close, one spark of hatred can ignite a wider fire. Yeah, and then we have 6 religion, yeah, like Islam, Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, Confucian, and Islam has the larger population, 87%. One urgent problem I want to highlight in the politicization of religion and the amplification of hate speech, especially in online spaces. In Indonesia, religious statements are often exploited for political gain, particularly during election period. Social media then becomes a tool that spread fear and disinformation, targeting minority groups and youth from interfaith background, and also women. This polarization increases social fragmentation, weakens democracy engagement, and fuels distrust, particularly in areas where historical tension already exists. To counter this, we create eco bineka, yeah. Eco is ecology, bineka is diverse, yeah. A peace movement that concept people of different religion and belief to work on shared environmental concern. Eco bineka is not just a program, but it's a bridge. Yeah, instead of arguing over our differences, we united around a common crisis is climate change. Yeah, from tree planting and mural painting to eco festival we create and interfaith dialogue we create. Eco Bineka creates safe, creative spaces for young people to build solidarity while protecting the planet. Yeah, also we create activity to doing digital campaigns, because when floods or drought come, they don't ask, what's your religion you follow? In a country like Indonesia, we both natural disaster and social conflict are frequent. This integrated approach is vital. I recall a moment from one of our Ecobinica festival in Central Java. Yeah, we choose Central Java, especially in Surakarta city, because it's a culturally diverse city with a history of interreligious tension, but also strong community networks open to collaboration. It reflects both the challenge and possibility of peace building in Indonesia. Yeah, a Muslim student and a Christian student were paired to plant tree and paint a mural together. At first, they barely spoke, but as they dug into the soil, added the color to the wall, they began to share story, a fear of misconception, of curiosity. Yeah, if we talk about differences and interfaith issue, yeah, we have about issue about the westernization. Yeah, you know, yeah, if we talk about that, yeah, it's issue about westernization. Yeah, by the end of the day, yeah, one of them told me, I thought we were too different to understand each other, but we both win when clean air, peace, and future. That is power of creating something together. This story also can be the story of many other people. If we do these four things that I think are very important to expand this impact, I suggest first one, institutionalize peace and ecological education in school curricula, especially with interfaith and youth component. Second one, support community interfaith initiative through public funding and cross-sector collaboration, especially those that combine arts, dialogue, and sustainability. And then empower digital literacy and counter speech training for youth and local leaders, especially religious leaders, to reduce online hate and amplify message of peace. And the last, involve youth meaningfully in policy making, especially from minority group, so they are not only seen as beneficiary, but as a co-leader of peace. When we equip young people with tools and trust, they become builders of harmony, not followers of division. Yeah, Indonesia, yeah, show us paradox, great diversity, great beauty, but also great risk when hate is left unhacked. But it also show us something else, the possibility of turning shared challenge into shared purpose. Yeah, let's all build peace not by ignoring our differences, but by acting together where it matters most. The earth is our shared home, and peace is our shared responsibility. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
On behalf of my co-moderator and myself, We wish to thank all our panelists, experts, for their valuable and insightful contributions. We will now be turning to the order that we have registered speakers from the floor. In order to allow us to accommodate everyone, we are doing very well by the time, by the way. So far, so good. We would really like to remind once again to stick to 3 minutes maximum, please, as much as possible. We would really appreciate that so that more floor participation could be possible and interaction. So indeed, the insights, reactions, or examples from you are what will energize our session and deepen the conversation. That is, with those wishes, I would like to turn to my co-moderator.
No, credo che...
It'll be very interesting now to listen to all of your contributions. Unfortunately, we do have some time constraints. There are many distinguished speakers. We have over 16 who have already sent in the request for the floor. Therefore, we kindly ask you to please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. We have the Chairman of the Board of the King Hamad Global Center for Coexistence and Tolerance, Abdullah bin Ahmed. Please.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أصحاب المعالي والسعادة.
In the name of Allah, All-Merciful, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished audience, may the peace and mercy of Allah be upon you. First of all, I'd like to thank the Interparliamentary Union and the Italian Parliament for having organized this very important conference with the help of the Organization of Religions for Peace. My participation in this high-level parliamentary conference, I think, shows how important it is to join forces to counter extremism and hate, which has such a negative impact on innocent civilians, especially children, women. Through wars which are against international law and the rights of human beings. And on the occasion of the Jubilee announced by Pope Francis, I'd like to say that Pope Francis truly was an international religious leader who promoted tolerance. And of course, we wish Pope Leo XIV all the very best so that he may continue to promote a message fostering dialogue between religions. Ladies and gentlemen, the Kingdom of Bahrain, under the guidance of its king and its government, think that there is a strategic importance in reiterating the values of peaceful coexistence. And we feel that dialogue is essential if we want to find a solution to the world's various conflicts. I'd like to mention the efforts made by our conference, the King Hamad Global Center, together with the IPU. We signed an agreement in October 2024 to organize a number of activities in schools with the goal of educating youth to peace. This happened in Jordan last year. We launched the center together with the support of the Interparliamentary Union with 2 artificial intelligence projects. We have launched a digital platform which supports institutions in decision-making. This project also fosters active participation in dialogues and in conferences, also through the support of artificial intelligence. with a specific focus on digital ethics and good governance, also in the digital sphere. The Kingdom of Bahrain wants to strengthen its position as a beacon for religious freedom. It wants to strengthen interfaith dialogue. And through these initiatives, the Kingdom of Bahrain is striving to foster interfaith dialogue, and it reiterates that ignorance is an enemy of peace. We have to work together to promote mutual respect. Ladies and gentlemen, currently the world is facing a crossroads. We have to work to promote dialogue as a way to achieve peace. And we know that peace is a strategic choice, which also has an impact on humanity. We have to strengthen solidarity as a factor which can lead to hope, allowing us to achieve a more fair future, one which is more respectful of human dignity. And our king's policies have allowed the center of ours to embrace a vision, the goal of which is to build bridges between civilizations and cultures so that together we can face our common challenges. We also want to launch a global document on coexistence with the participation of religious and non-religious leaders, through which we can strengthen and consolidate justice and educate people along the lines of the Marrakesh Declaration. We also have to strengthen the rights of people, allowing them to live peaceful and prosperous lives. And finally, we wish all the very best to this conference. Thank you very much, and may the peace and mercy of Allah be upon all of you.
And yet, in the order of the registration, I would like to invite Right Honorable Gerardo Fernandez Noronha. Por favor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to convey a message from Mexico, which is a majority Catholic country. I'm part of a minority. I'm an atheist. I believe that when I die, I will simply stop existing. Despite that, I believe that we need to reach out to our brothers and sisters. We have to help those who suffer, those who are in need. In Mexico, racism and class differences and religious intolerance exist as in all other countries. We have homophobia, discrimination, misogyny, as all other countries. I have a weight in my heart which saddens me. I'm one of the very few in Mexico who has raised his voice to speak out against what is happening in Palestine. And I received a video from a girl asking me to help them because they wanted to live, they wanted to play, they wanted to study. And it's inconceivable to me to see the silence regarding the events unfolding in Palestine. 18,000 children have died by a confessional state. 18,000 women have been killed. Churches and mosques, holy sites have been destroyed, along with hospitals and schools. I want our voices to be heard, at least our voices. We have to demand that all of this stops. And you can describe what is happening in Palestine in any way, for both peoples, the Jewish people and the Palestinian people. They both have the right to exist. They both have the right to coexist. They all have the right to dialogue and to have opportunities. They all have the right to have their different religious, political, and ethical views to be respected. That is the reason why I decided to come here and to attend this meeting. I am here to ask all of you to break the silence. We are also close to a war we do not want, because the hostility has also spread to other countries in the region. And it's very important, I think, and again, I am not here to ask anything for my country. We are committed to tolerance, respect, democracy, equality, and freedoms is absolute. We have struggled for decades to change things, and things are changing for the best in my country. But I do think that we have to make sure that our voices are heard and that we can achieve peace in all corners of the world, beginning with what the Palestinian people is suffering. Thank you very much for your attention.
Grazie. Adesso.
Thank you, and the floor now goes to Sayed Jawad Al-Kouei.
Allora,
maybe we can go back to the speaker later on. We now have the Speaker of the National Assembly of Zimbabwe, the Right Honorable Mutenda.
c'è? Andiamo avanti.
Moving on to the President of the Arab Parliament, Mohammed Al-Yamahi. No, excuse me, the Right Honorable Mutenda is here.
Thank you. The moderators, the distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, countering hatred based on religion or belief resonates with John Stuart Mill's seminal narrative entitled On Liberty, when he affirms that, and I quote, "The only way in which a human being can make some approach to knowing the whole of a subject is by hearing what can be said about it by persons of every variety of opinion," unquote. This philosophical foundation undergirds the embracing of diverse religious or faith belief perspectives against interfaith polarization that tears up the rubric of our societies. Voltaire's enduring principle that, and I quote, "I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it," also captures the essence of religious tolerance that must inform our approach to interfaith dialogue. The Zimbabwe Constitution of 2013, enacted by the Parliament of Zimbabwe in Article 60, elevates freedom of conscience, religion, thought, and belief as a fundamental right, creating what legal scholars dub a positive liberty framework, one that not merely prohibits interference, but actively anchors religious expression. This constitutional provision guarantees every citizen the right to freedom of religion and belief, including the right to practice, propagate, and give expression to their faith or belief. Thus, this provision recognizes the communal and evangelical dimensions that give many faiths their standing. In Section 56 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, fortifies the prohibition of discrimination based on religion or belief in what constitutional lawyers describe as belt and braces approach to religious freedom, freedom of conscience and thought. The Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission buttresses stoutly religious freedom and its attendant tenets. That is why Zimbabwe is proud signatory to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, whose Article 18 provides that, I quote, everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. Apart from ratification of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Zimbabwe has also acceded to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, whose Article 8 protects freedom of conscience and religion grounded on African values and traditions of the philosophy of Ubuntu. Ubuntu, which means I am because you are, and you are because we are. That is why Zimbabwe is an interfaith country that is inclusive of all lawful religious persuasions under the banner of Ecumenical Zimbabwe Council of Churches. Accordingly, ladies and gentlemen, there is no hatred based on religion or belief in Zimbabwe, which canvasses polarization, dehumanization, or weaponization of religion or belief. Ladies and gentlemen, congratulations to the Italian Parliament, the IPU, and the Religions for the Peace in the convocation of this second conference on interfaith dialogue. In faithful hope, we shall conquer. Thank you.
So I would like to now invite once again, if he's back in the room, Syed Jawad Al-Hoey, Secretary General of the Al-Hoey Institute. If not, then we will be moving to the President of the Arab Parliament's Right Honorable Mohammed Al-Yammahi. Thank you. It's okay. And on the front rows, I just want to technically address on the front rows where there is no microphone, you are most welcome to the lectern. But then we would like to encourage also other members to take the floor from their seats. Thank you very much to gain some time. Thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أصحاب المعالي.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable parliamentarians, distinguished audience, may the peace of Allah and His mercy and blessings be upon you. First of all, allow me to thank and express my appreciation to the Interparliamentary Union and to the Parliament of Italy and the Organization of Religions for Peace for all of their efforts in organizing this very important meeting. The topic we are discussing today, namely the struggle against religious-based hate, is a real threat to our societies. And I would also like to tackle this topic by going beyond religious boundaries, by looking at the deep roots of this phenomenon, especially in the context we live in. Hate based on religion isn't born from nowhere. In fact, it grows and is nurtured through cultural and religious notions which generate hate towards those who are different from us through negative stereotypes. This is something that we see happening towards Arabs and Muslims in some Western societies. this isn't an isolated form of hate. In fact, this is a phenomenon which exists and which targets an entire people, an entire religion. And this is something we can clearly see in the context of labor, of migration policies and security policies. And we can also see this extremism in the international position when it comes to the suffering of the Palestinian people, which for over 1.5 years has been suffering extermination and genocide, accompanied by a shameful silence on the international level, as if Palestinian blood were different from the blood of any other. And this shameful, this disgraceful international silence, I think, is an expression of this hate and racism, which is fostered through political means. Ladies and gentlemen, the world which uses this hate and which ignores this hate when it affects others and speaks out when it affects itself is hate which stems from countries which have no legitimacy and no credibility. We have to end this political hypocrisy based on double standards. We have to work to allow all human dignity to be respected, regardless of our national, ethnical, and religious belonging. Thank you for your attention, and may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you. Thank you. And we would now like to give the floor to Madam Alice Chan, Executive Director and co-founder of the Center for Civic Religious Literacy, followed by Mr. Ahmed bin Salman.
Is this, it's on? Yeah, okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I am deeply moved by what I've been hearing from the panel and from the speakers, especially the speaker from Mexico. Muchas gracias. And it's my honor to be here to share a few words based on the work that I'm doing in Canada at the Center for Civic Religious Literacy. Grazie. Yes, it's a privilege to be here from Canada to speak based on my research, my teaching experiences, and the work now at a nonprofit called the Center for Civic Religious Literacy. I have 2 comments to share based on things that I've learned through my different work, and then 1 question for the panel and others in the room who'd like to think and talk about this later. Firstly, our work in Canada about religious literacy, I wanted to highlight that it is very much about religion as well as non-religion and spirituality. For us in Canada, this is extremely important, and it invites you to think about your approach to interfaith, how you understand that, because for us, 35% of Canadians are non-religious. That can include those who are spiritual but not religious, humanists, atheists, etc. So it's changing the way that we see this conversation in Canada. As well, Indigenous populations are being more and more recognized in our country through reconciliation, and that requires us to understand and learn from Indigenous spiritualities. So one thing I would like to share here that we have learned in Canada and continue to learn is this idea and concept and value of 7 generations, to understand the 7 generations that have come before and how they've impacted and brought us to where we are today, what we can learn from them, as well as the 7 generations to come. And that is profound in my mind for a lot of the conversations we're seeing in the world today, where different leaders are preparing and planning based on their term or within their lifetime, without seeing what this impact will have later on for generations and generations to come, for one another as well as the earth. So I share that with you, as well as the second learning that I have relates to a lot of conversation this morning about the need for dialogue and the need for education, and this is absolutely true. But one thing that I've learned from my research in Montreal, Toronto, California, and the state of Georgia, which I know is only small parts of the big world that we live in, but from what I've learned there is that absolutely education for religious literacy is important, it is needed, It's there, but it can also disappear. And just as it is doing in many parts of Canada. So education is a key, informal education, but we need support from the systems to keep that going. Whatever happens inside the school is also impacted by what happens outside of the school. So we need education in the form of religious literacy to support those who are social actors, such as healthcare, media, etc., which we've talked about. So I encourage you, please, attend the session tomorrow on religious literacy, hosted by Dr. Catherine Marshall and Dr. Peter Mandeville. Thank you very much.
And I would like to invite now Right Honorable Ahmed bin Salman Al Musallam, the Speaker of the Council of Representatives of Kingdom of Bahrain. Please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
In the name of Allah, the Merciful, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may peace be upon you. First of all, we wish to thank the Republic of Italy, its people, and its authorities for having hosted this very important meeting. We appreciate the work carried out by the Interparliamentary Union and the Organization of Religions for Peace for having organized this meeting of ours, which is a clear commitment when it comes to countering hate and fostering dialogue between religions. This is a clear commitment on all of our parts in civil societies. And we'd like to reiterate our commitment based on the principles of protecting human dignity so that we can create a more humane civilization. We are collectively aware of the need to foster dialogue and mutual understanding among all peoples. The Kingdom of Bahrain is aware of its responsibility in promoting peace and coexistence amongst religions and faiths, has been continuing its efforts with an open, humanistic approach under the guidance of our sovereign. May God bless him. And we have embarked upon a number of initiatives, beginning with the proclamation of tolerance in 2017 through the creation of the Hamad Center for Coexistence and Tolerance, which plays a crucial role in fostering interfaith dialogue. We also set up the King Hamad International Award for Interreligious Dialogue and Peaceful Coexistence to teach this topic in Rome, at the University of Rome. We are working to mobilize representatives of 79 different states so that they can attend a meeting in Bahrain, which was also attended by the late Pope Francis. We have to mobilize all of our resources to promote peace and to lead to dialogue and the peaceful resolution of global conflicts. All of these initiatives prove that the Kingdom of Bahrain does not merely want to proclaim these principles. So we are committed on the regional and international level. And we do hope that our efforts can lead to mutual respect, coexistence without hate. And we are very much in favor of any practical initiatives aimed at protecting the younger generations. And may the peace of Allah be upon you.
Grazie. Adesso.
Thank you. And now we'll have Ryokyu Endo from Kyoto, Japan, and we would ask Abdullah Assam to be prepared to speak next. Thank you. Over to you.
Prego, da lì, e poi ricordo che è possibile...
You can speak from there, and let me remind you, if you have a microphone at your table, then you go ahead and speak from there. Thank you.
Buongiorno, assalamu alaikum, amen, om shanti, shalom. I'm from Japan. My name is Ryoki Endo. I'm from Japan. I'm the founder of a global peace project called Hope 80. It began in 2014 in Palestine when I visited a 9-year-old boy who had just lost both legs in an airstrike on Gaza. When I entered his room, I could not do anything but hold him in my arms and weep. That moment carved a prayer deep into my heart. May no child ever have to suffer like this. From this prayer, we created the flame of hope. A sacred fire formed from the unification of 16 historical flames from around the world, including embers from the Hiroshima atomic bomb, the eternal flame of Jesus in Jerusalem, and the sacred flame of Kukai in Japan, which has burned continuously for over 1,200 years. This flame now carries the prayers of over 400,000 people, including His Holiness Pope Francis, Pope Leo yesterday, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama. It is now burning eternally in Lumbini, the birthplace of Buddha, and soon it will be burned in Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus. Of course, we hope it may one day shine in Mecca as well. Today, the descendants of former enemies, the grandchildren and great-grandchildren of World War II political leaders, such as US President Truman, UK Prime Minister Churchill, Japanese wartime Prime Minister Tojo, as well as Nazi officer, Auschwitz survivor, and Mahatma Gandhi, and working together with a flame of hope. Our slogan is yesterday's enemy is today's friend. It comes from an old Japanese samurai saying, but its meaning is universal. Let me tell you a story. My mother survived World War II by running from the bombing every night. One day, my Canadian friend asked her, "Do you hate Americans?" She looked confused. For her, war was like a tsunami, a natural disaster, not something to blame on people. Many Japanese people who survived World War II, including Hiroshima, Nagasaki, feels this way. It's a mindset rooted in Buddhism and Shinto, which teaches us follow and live harmony with nature and the concept of nothing is permanent. Clouds shift, waves rise and fall. Life is always changing. Many Buddhists, including myself, believe in reincarnation. And whether we are aware of it or not, we human beings could carry a deep sense of that. I believe the person who is your enemy today may have been your brother in past life, or your daughter in next. When we feel this concept in our bones, hate has nowhere to stay. The future of humanity is not about fighting, it is about healing. Not about controlling nature or people, but about sharing happiness and freedom. This is the heart of Hope 80. This is the meaning of the flame of hope. And this is why we walk together today, not as enemies of the past, but as friends for the future. May no child on the planet have to suffer. Thank you very much.
I now would like to invite Right Honorable Hassan bin Abdullah Al Ghanim, Speaker of the Shura Council, Qatar, please. We don't have the presence here currently of the speaker. Okay. So I would like to now move to Denis Zvizdic, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Bosnia and Herzegovina. Please, Right Honorable.
Thank you very much. Uvažene ekscelencije, poštovani prisutni dame I gospodo.
Guests, it is a great honor to address you today here in Rome, one of the oldest and most beautiful cities in Europe, to discuss one of the most pressing issues of our time, combating hatred based on religion or belief. Today's world is not only scared by wars, but also by deep spiritual identity crises that tear at the fabric of our societies. No ideological or religious worldview can ever justify hatred towards others. Human beings endowed with conscience have the capacity to both create and destroy. This is the crucial dividing line between civilization and barbarism. That is why tolerance, cooperative politics, and collective action for the common good carry enormous potential for development and stability. Dialogue and mutual respect are the path to understanding and the most effective remedy for rising tensions. Unfortunately, religion is increasingly being used as a tool for political manipulation and fear-mongering. I don't know whether we are conscious what are consequences or hatred based on it. I think that it can be understood only by those who experience that, not only through TV channels. We in Bosnia and Herzegovina know all too well what happens when religion is used to dehumanize. The result is ethnic cleansing and genocide. After World War II and the Holocaust, the global community vowed never again. Yet, genocide was repeated in Srebrenica in July 1995. After Srebrenica, we once again said, never again. And yet, we have failed the test of protecting human rights and the values of civilization. Wars accompanied by crimes against civilians and children continue to rage around the world. We see this tragedy repeating itself today in Gaza and in many other parts of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I come from Bosnia and Herzegovina, a land historically known as a meeting point of peoples and religions, a symbol of civilization and progress, and proof that people of different worldviews can live together in peace. The capital of my country, Sarajevo, is often called the Jerusalem of Europe. because for over 5 centuries, mosques, cathedrals, churches, and synagogues have stood side by side. I repeat, more than 5 centuries. But Sarajevo is also, and we are very proud of all of that. And because of that, we have the obligation to promote importance of interreligious dialogue. That's why we hosted a conference last year called Members of Parliament and Religious Leaders for Peace and Coexistence. This conference brought together more than 500 participants from around the world and sent a powerful message that dialogue among religious, cultures, and civilization is both possible and necessary. At this conference, we adopted the Sarajevo Declaration, which calls for a global partnership between religious and political leaders in combating extremism, discrimination, and hate speech. And one of key speakers and panelists at that conference was Mr. Pallavicini, that is sitting over there. These messages are fully in line with the Marrakesh Communiqué from 2023, where we jointly affirmed that interfaith dialogue is a key instrument for promoting peace, justice, and human rights. At the end, I will use to propose some measures that Parliament can improve their role in combating hatred. First, enact legal prohibitions on hate speech, because radical nationalists and religious fanatics are the biggest problem of each society. Second, increase investment in education and the promotion of tolerant policies, especially in schools, but also through digital platforms most used by young people. Third, strengthen partnership with religious leaders and faith-based organizations, because they have very important influence on communities, given that according to available data, between 80 and 85% of the global population identify with some form of organized religion. At the end, ladies and gentlemen, as Jalaluddin Rumi said, do not be a prisoner of hate, for it will quietly burn your soul. That is why we must work together and to establish systematic foundations for societies that teach tolerance, not hatred. Thank you for your attention.
Grazie. Adesso.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from the President of the Senate of Chile, Manuel José Osandón. Is he here? President Osandón? If he is not here at the moment, we can move on to Deborah Bergamini, and then we'll see if the others come and we'll hear from them. I would just remind you that we have 5 or 6 more contributions, so you'll have 3 minutes each. I hope you remember that, because it's getting to be quite late.
It's a great honor for me to address you on behalf of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean. I'd also like to thank the Italian Parliament, the Interparliamentary Union, and Regions for Peace for having set up such an important and timely conference. This meeting holds particular significance, taking place during the year of the Jubilee, a moment of spiritual reflection and renewal. Yet we witness how violence and conflicts continue to rage in our regions, especially in Ukraine and the Middle East, affecting too many innocent victims. In this regard, we, the policymakers, are the first who are called to obey to the call for enduring culture of encounter, trust, and universal fraternity. As parliamentarians, we must translate these values into concrete legislative action, ensuring that human dignity, religious freedom, and peace building remain at the core of our national and international agendas, aware that dialogue is never a weakness, but strength, and that true leadership means building bridges, not walls. It is precisely in these circumstances that interfaith dialogue, as well as the role of religious leaders, is crucial to convey messages of peace and reconciliation and to make people hear the voice of enduring hope, the possibility that life can flourish even in the midst of appalling situations like the ones that are undergoing. The action of interfaith dialogue and religious leaders is very tangible and concrete. For instance, PAM, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean, has been joining efforts with, among others, the schools of Ulama of Morocco, as well as the Egyptian Ministry of Religious Endowments, especially under Minister Goma, and the Hedaya Center in the United Arab Emirates to combat radicalization and extremist violence among youth. Today, in the Euro-Mediterranean and Gulf regions, religion is too often instrumentalized for political purposes, used against minorities and diversity. As parliamentarians, we have the duty to act, promoting and adopting legislative frameworks that ensure religious and belief minorities are recognized, protected, fully integrated into our societies. This also includes the regulation of contents on digital platforms that now, unfortunately, play a central role in spreading religious hatred and disinformation, aiming at undermining democratic values and institutions. PAM is launching a dedicated communication campaign to combat online disinformation, misinformation, violence, and fake news. At the same time, defending religious freedom must never serve to justify setbacks in other rights. In this regard, interfaith and intercultural education from an early stage, along with the promotion of tolerance in the media and public discourse, are more than ever essential to building and reinforcing peaceful coexistence and lasting stability and prosperity. Thank you.
And I would like to invite a Vice President of the European Parliament, also an Italian herself, Madam Right Honourable Antonella Sperna.
Grazie.
Thank you, President Lupi, President Casini, President Axon, kind colleagues and guests. First of all, I wish to thank you for this opportunity we have for our discussion. And the topic of discussion, of course, touches the very heart of our democratic values and the fundamentals of our humanity and our society. I share many of your views, and I think that your words and your reflections will help us to put things into perspective. It is an honor for me to take the floor in this high-level conference today, and I'm happy that I've been asked by President Metsola to be here. I'm here to represent the European Parliament, and I bring her greetings to you all. We represent a democratic assembly at the European Parliament. We have 500 million citizens, and this is based on mutual respect, multiculturalism, and the art of compromise. You know that the European Union is born of the need for peace. Allow me to say that in recent times we've been more and more concerned about the increase in hatred and polarization, even on religious grounds. This divides our society, and often it results in discrimination and acts of violence even, and it affects believers and non-believers alike, and often minorities. The religious minorities are paying the price for this. They are dehumanized, they are targeted, they are isolated. As the Vice President of the European Parliament, I am in charge of the functioning of the European Union under Article 17 of the treaty, and therefore it is up to me to maintain an open dialogue, a transparent dialogue with churches, religious associations, philosophical and non-confessional organizations as well. And I see you all here. I'm very happy to see that. This dialogue is essential. It is key in building trust and exchanging views and in strengthening the fundamental value of human dignity, and it mustn't be neglected. In the European Parliament, interreligious and intercultural dialogue allow us to listen and to give voice to those who are unheeded, and they must be allowed to take part in the debate. We wish to promote democratic values, human values, tolerance, and peaceful coexistence. Dialogue is also an instrument with which we can prevent conflict. Article 17 of the treaty, in fact, envisages an ongoing discussion with faith leaders. We have to consider the items, the topics on the agenda of the European Union. We have to fight hatred online and offline, because a democracy cannot be living in fear or in exclusion. No matter whether we're talking about believers, the message is the same. If there is hatred, there is no trust, and therefore there is fear. We need to react, otherwise we run the risk of societal fragmentation. We know that words can hurt people in our digital world today. There is disinformation, and we know that there are strategies which have to uphold responsibility, ethics, and freedom of expression. We mustn't leave anyone behind. We need education, we need civic participation, and authentic dialogue which brings people together and does not divide them. Opportunities such as the one we have today are key. Hatred grows when people feel invisible. That is why prevention and protection go hand in hand, as we see in the EU action plan against racism. And we need to fight against anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim hatred. This is what we are fighting for. Now, we have an important role to play. It is both legal and moral.
I really appreciate that you can catch all the deep sense of what I want to say you. The words we use every day matter because they form the foundation of our shared values and coexistence. Let us use them wisely to foster a sense of belonging and shared responsibility in building our society. Words matter because they shape our understanding of the world, communicate our thoughts, and influence our interactions. Words have power because they shape our worldview and our relationship with others. When measured, they can divide, harm and spread hate. Hate speech and harmful language dehumanize and fuel division. But when used with care, words can unite, promote understanding, and challenge prejudice. Let's shape together a culture where words build bridges instead of breaking them. The word we choose today shape the world we will live in tomorrow. If we commit to using language that reflects our core European values, democracy, freedom, solidarity, and human dignity, we have the power to build a future worthy of other principles. As Wittgenstein said, the limits of my language means the limit of my world. So let's now work together to build a framework that gives meaning to everything around us. Thank you for your invitation.
And now we have Ahmed Touazi, who is a member of the House of Representatives of Morocco.
Non c'è. Passiamo.
He is here. Yes, he is.
Yeah, I'm trying.
شكرا السيدة الرئيسة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على النبي الأمين. يسعدني أن أتدخل باسم برلمان المملكة المغربية.
On behalf of the Parliament of Morocco, I'm very happy to take the floor during this debate, which is in fact dealing with one of the greatest challenges that mankind is faced with, and that is the increase of hatred on religious grounds. And of course, this encourages polarization, and hatred is the result of fear and ignorance, and it is disseminated readily through the media. And this, of course, is a threat for peace in our societies, and there is a lack of trust, therefore. That is why we need to adopt a very firm and strong position in this regard, and the goal is to seek out effective alternatives on a cultural basis, legal or political basis. Now, the values of coexistence and tolerance in Morocco are are a fundamental basis for us. And in fact, in Morocco, we have adopted this approach, and they've always underscored the need to predicate the need for dialogue on the rejection, on the refusal of extremism. It is important, therefore, to have meetings as the one we had in Fes, where youth can participate, because youth mustn't only be protected against hatred, but they need to be able to participate in protecting peace, in efforts which aim at protecting peace. And therefore the Kingdom of Morocco adopted the International Day for the Fight Against Hatred, and Morocco has taken an important position in countering hate speech as well. There have been numerous initiatives in Morocco, and in fact one of these is the International Day for the fight for countering hate speech, and this was on the 18th of June this year, as it is every year. And this is a way to show that we are indeed tackling this global challenge. We need broader efforts to pursue this goal. We have all sorts of people who are fighting against discrimination at different levels. In Morocco, we are trying to establish a national system, an advanced system which allows for the participation of civil society and social institutions, societal institutions which participate, and of course our youth and our public organizations. This is necessary in order to step up this kind of participation and the integration of this approach, the mainstreaming of this approach in our culture. So it is important also to take into account the legislative dimension in our fight against hate speech. It is important, therefore, to make laws. We have to engage in debates with the key actors and key stakeholders in our society and leaders in our society. And in fact, at the conference in 2023, the Forum on Interreligious or Interfaith Dialogue, which resulted in the Marrakesh Declaration, it was possible, therefore, to draw up a code of conduct which encourages people to respect religions and to respect the other. Hatred cannot be dealt with more hatred. The only way we can deal with it is by consecrating universal values and the rule of law. Therefore, we make this call to intensify, this appeal to intensify cooperation among the parliaments. We have to preserve freedom of faith, of religion. It must be based on inalienable principles, in fact. And we have to make sure that there is full respect of human rights, and we mustn't disseminate any sort of doubt through social media, because this would impact our youth negatively. Now, Morocco has devised an integrated approach. It is important for us to act internationally, and we wish to reiterate our complete engagement, and we are ready to participate in all initiatives that reinforce peace, that fight hatred. We are convinced that peace is not only a necessity, but it is a choice at all different levels of legislation in all of our societies. Thank you.
Time that was allocated, but we would like to give that courtesy time, close our list, and turn back to our panelists here. So if I may actually invite David Agios, Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives of Malta, please. And I would really like to ask those floor interventions to be kept as short as possible. Thank you, so that we can close the panel.
Thank you. I won't speak long. It's only 2.5 hours, so. I come from Malta, as you say. Malta is an island. It's an island, a small island in the middle of the Mediterranean, where we have 365 churches. One day of the year. We have in our constitution also the fact that the Roman Catholic religion is the main religion of our country, of Malta.
Sorry, you have to change the microphone because can't listen. Thank you very much.
I have to start again? From the beginning? Okay. As I was saying, I come from the small island of Malta, where we have in our constitution that the Roman Catholic religion is the main religion of our country. However, the same constitution also ensures full freedom of conscience and free exercise of religious worship for all individuals. It also protects freedom of expression, including the freedom to hold opinions and to receive and communicate ideas without interference. Unfortunately, hatred on the basis of religion or belief, including hate speech, discrimination and violence, is a daily occurrence in international news. We all witness what's happening in Ukraine, in the Middle East. Therefore, vigilance in monitoring the potential expansion of hate and the impact on individual rights, as well as local, national, religion and global responses, is vital. Religious freedom, tolerance and understanding are key factors to fight escalation of polarization and religious weaponization. Religious freedom is the seed of peace and the soul of development. Where it is respected, societies thrive. Where it is denied, conflict arises. The work has to begin in our own societies. We need to combat all sorts of discrimination with good and strong laws. Here's where the role of us parliamentarians is crucial. We are responsible to legislate, and we are responsible to see that legislation is implemented in an effective way. Keeping peace and promoting peaceful coexistence is a continuous process, one which is not limited to a particular geographical region or point in history, but is rather a universal journey requiring joint and innovative tools. It is crucial to transform words into action and be open to different beliefs and creeds. Therefore, I emphasize the importance to recognize that tolerance and peace are not abstract, unattainable concepts, applicable only to certain countries or political realities, but are universal notions that should form the basis of our everyday policy, of our legal script. Moreover, I emphasize that tolerance and peace
necessitate a reciprocal approach and the wholehearted participation by everyone, from the youngest member of our societies to our elderly population, from the remote farmer working the land to the urban businessman CEO. We all hold the potential to be ambassadors for tolerance and peace. Allow me to conclude with what Pope Leo said yesterday during the general audience. Nothing is lost with peace. Everything can be lost with war. We must therefore work together so that our beliefs, our religions are catalysts of peace and not war and conflict. Thank you, dear friends. Thank you, Italian Parliament. Thank you, IPU.
Grazie. Adesso.
Thank you, and the floor now goes to Abdel Wahab Al-Shiri. Is he here? Thank you. And please be mindful of our time constraints, because we do want to give our speakers a chance to respond for about a minute each.
أصحاب السماحة والمعالي والنيافة أصحاب
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Muslim World League, I am taking the floor at this second Parliamentary Conference on Interfaith Dialogue, the participants of which strive towards the achievement of a tangible goal. And parliamentary diplomacy, along with religious diplomacy, wish to join forces to strive towards the collective good. I wish to greet you on behalf of our Secretary General, Mr. Mohammed bin Abdel Salim Al Aissa, Chair of the Association of Muslim Ulema. And we do hope that through these meetings we can strive to change things together with all religious associations. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today for this second edition of our conference in Italy, while the world faces a very difficult situation. The world is experiencing a number of events and accelerating changes. With new challenges we all face, there is a reshaping of the world order. We have to think about our past experiences so that the pain we have experienced can lead us to a future based on justice, respect, lawfulness, and peace between peoples and states. And we have to strive to learn from our past and build upon what we have achieved. Ladies and gentlemen, we wish to express to the world that our religions and the teachings of the Muslim faith are based on human principles. They are essential in dialogue and in the hope that we can achieve a future based on positive relations and fostering humanity. On behalf of all our associations, I wish to express that we are committed to ending all wars and all conflicts so that the language of wisdom can prevail, and so that we can support the rule of law and condemn all forms of violence without exception. All of these conflicts and all of these crises are having an impact on our humanity. They waste our resources, our efforts, our youth, and our future, dragging us towards increasingly violent wars and increasingly horrible wars at that. I wish to reiterate that the association that the Muslim World League is inspired by the Mecca and is willing to cooperate with the entire world to strive towards a better future, to solve our differences and to promote our common values. Thank you.
I would like to invite Monsieur Nehma, a member of the Council of Algeria. So, Monsieur Nehma? Issam Nehma. Issam Nehma. Honorable Issam Nehma. N'est pas ici?
No? Bye. Next.
Sahar Maranlu, University of London. Sorry. Honorable Issam Nehma is here. Okay, please, sir.
Honorable Chair, Honorable Chair, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Salamullahi ala al-Jami'. Let me begin by expressing my deep appreciation to the IPU for organizing this important conference on interfaith dialogue. I also extend my sincere thanks to the Italian Parliament for hosting us in this beautiful and historic city of Rome, a spiritual crossroads and cradle of dialogue across civilization and faith. I equally acknowledge the valuable contribution of religion for peace, which adds a spiritual dimension to this encounter. I came to you from Algeria, a land of Saint Augustine, a towering thinker born from our soil, shaped by its spirit and died in the city of Annaba, where his basilica still overlooks the Mediterranean as a symbol of the union between faith, thought, and identity. From that heritage, I bring the greetings of Algeria, a country, spiritual wisdom, civilization depth, and human dignity. It is both an honor and responsibility to speak on behalf of People's Democratic Republic of Algeria, a nation that emerges from a painful colonial past, reclaims its sovereignty, and builds its project upon values of justice, spiritual authenticity, and inclusive governance. In this context, I wish to highlight the dynamic legislative work taking place within Algeria Parliament. Just recently reviewed a new law on the governance of endowment, Waqf assets. This reflects our state commitment to institutionalizing the spiritual domain within framework of transparency, modernity, and public benefit. This effort is being spearheaded by the President of the Council of the Nation, Mr. Azzouz Nasri, as a part of the nation vision supported by Mr. the President Abdelmajid Tebboune, who has prioritized the modernization of religious governance as a pillar of our inclusive state building. It is worth recalling that Algeria is a home of over 74 churches and cathedrals, many of which classified as a protected heritage sites. We have also restored the Basilica of Our Lady of Africa and are preparing renovation of the Sacré-Cœur Cathedral, a reflection of Algeria's commitment to spiritual diversity and memory. In Algeria, religion is not excluded from public life. Instead, it is institutionally organized by law and public structure. Our constitution affirms Islam as a state religion, yet guarantees freedom of belief within a well-balanced national framework. Distinguished colleagues, this conference is not a diplomatic luxury, it is a moral imperative. We parliamentarians are called to be more than legislator. We must become guardian of conscience, architect of cohesion, and builder of shared hope. Dialogue must go beyond ceremony. It must become policy, legislation, and a daily culture. Algeria does not claim to be a perfect model, but a path, one built on a moderation, openness, and a national unity in diversity. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Grazie. Adesso
Thank you. The floor now goes to Sarah Mariu.
University of London.
Eccolo.
Hello. Thank you so much. I'm a socio-legal academic from Iran, teaching and working in the UK. My work is around justice and Islamic conceptions of justice, how people, especially public, perceive justice in online and offline world. I have a question to ask, especially now with what's going on against Iran, my country. My question is that how we can allow God, how we can actually allow religion to play a more serious role in peacemaking when the politicians do not listen to religious leaders. They don't listen to the international law. I do teach international law and human rights. They don't listen to those concepts that we have fought for years. And when public emotions are more controlled by misinformation and disinformation on the digital world rather than our own religious teaching and leaders, I'm really worried at the moment, especially during last few days, after what's happening, I mean, for last few months, for last few actually years. While we are making dialogue here, countries of such a rich, diverse religious history, such as Lebanon, Palestine, and my country, Iran, are attacked, and innocent people are killed because of the Western politician misconceptions. I mean, from their perspective, we are numbers, not the human. How we can say that from the eyes of God, we are humans, equal in human dignity, and lives are important as non-Muslim, people not coming from the Middle East. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I'm quite emotional these days. Thank you.
And as this is our last speaker from the floor will be Farid Ahmad, I would like to invite National Secretary External Affairs of Ahmadiyya Muslim Community UK. Please, sir.
Thank you very much. And firstly, thank you to the organisers and to the IPU for the conference. I have some remarks on this topic. I think we've heard a lot about parliamentarians talking about laws to protect and end hatred, end discrimination. But I think the role of parliamentarians goes far beyond just stopping hatred. How much time is being invested in promoting laws and creating laws that build respect in society? And how much time is used by parliamentarians to give voice to those who are the most marginalised in society, to mainstream the voices of minorities? Through such actions, we can build bridges far more effectively. And yes, we've heard about faith and belief as a route to peace, but we also know that faith without action is meaningless. We need to focus not on ideology, but on values of our society that are common to all of us. And in Islam, we were told by the founder, the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, that no Arab is superior to a non-Arab, and no non-Arab is superior to an Arab. It is this concept of equality that will counter hatred. And we need to be wary, because if we do not, we see and we hear about the domino effect. You start with one and you target the next and the next and the next. The answer to that is to go to the source, to stop it, to focus on equality. And the last couple of points I'd like to make is that there is a saying in Islam of the Holy Prophet that all actions depend upon the motive. I'm sure all of us here are committed to the idea of countering hatred and promoting peace. But how many of us, perhaps secretly, have carve-outs to those ideals? And if we don't have carve-outs, then it is our duty to make sure we convey that to others who perhaps have some reservations. And lastly, I think the actions that we need in current world affairs is to focus on justice. There can be no peace without justice, and the leader of our community, His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, has said that we must leave a legacy of peace, not a legacy of bloodshed, and must leave a legacy for our future generations that we can be proud of. And that starts with freedom of religion and starts with countering hatred and treating others as equals. Thank you.
Before we turn to the panel, we would like to also invite the great-grandson of Mahatma Gandhi, representing Flame of Hope, Tushar Gandhi. You're invited for 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm a misfit in this house where largely people's representatives are talking, but since I represent the legacy of my great-grandfather, I take this opportunity to share a few thoughts. It's very nice that the whole House seems to be very concerned about the conflict and violence that have become oppressive for us. But I think what we need to do today is to look inwards, because civilization, religion, and society have institutionalized violence, discrimination, and oppression in the form of patriarchy. We don't even consider patriarchal discrimination to be an act of violence. And it has seeped into our families, not just in society or amongst countries. Privileged women have found their positions, but a large part of society still thrives on patriarchy and patriarchal discrimination. As long as that is not resolved, as long as we don't create religious practices that are based on true equality, this dialogue will not have much of an effect. In 1930, my great-grandfather suggested that it was time to turn the searchlight inwards and look within ourselves to find what was wrong with society. I think the time has come when we start putting the searchlight back again within ourselves and not try to find blame with others. With this, I leave you. I represent the Flame of Hope. And just as a final thought, I would like to say that as the darkness of hate, discrimination, and conflict seem to be oppressive, it is time to burn the lanterns or lamps of love and become the flame of love ourselves. What my great-grandfather said, be the change that you wish to see in this world. I think we all need to practice that in the present moment. Gaza, the genocide in Gaza continues not because of the evil of violence, but because the silence of the majority. Our voices need to be heard in society loudly. Thank you very much.
Bene, adesso
we now have time for a very brief response from each of our speakers, beginning with His Eminence, Cardinal Koovakad.
Grazie.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for all of the remarks we've heard today, all of which underline the need we have for peace and justice I'm especially grateful for your appreciation regarding Italy's and the Holy See's initiatives to promote peace. Now, what we've learned from experience is that peace brings development. Therefore, if we want to leave a peaceful society to our children, we have to be smart in promoting peace, which will then be followed by development and well-being. And let me conclude by quoting Pope Leo XIV. In a world hurt by violence and conflict, I believe that we will be freed from ideological and political constraints, and we will be able to say no to war and yes to peace, no to the arms race and yes to disarm, no to an economy which impoverishes our peoples and the earth, and yes to an integral development. Our fraternity, which I'm sure we'll be able to support through tangible actions, will lead to a more peaceful world, which is something that all men and women of goodwill strive towards. And from this point of view, it's also very important to avoid discrimination or differences between minorities, majorities, and religions. And hopefully, through this very worthy initiative, we can contribute to creating a better world compared to today's. Thank you.
Prego, Pallavicini.
Mr. Pallavicini, over to you.
Well, just to be brief, I think 3 points. The first one would be the example that, if I may say now, Pope Leo is updating of the great experience, as far as I could witness in Abu Dhabi, with this human fraternity declaration that linked a shared values in a document by Sheikh Al-Azhar Ahmed Al-Tayyib and Pope Francis as a symbol and a concrete example of creating the premises of no hatred and no abuse of religion for power, but together united for the building a concrete possibility of brotherhood. And I think this has been then since Abu Dhabi, then it was implemented and in Manama, in Bahrain, and in Kazakhstan, and in Indonesia. And so this is something that is spreading, and it can be still now an example for all believers and for all political leaders as well. The second point is, I think, the great example of Europe, which was mentioned by Vice President Berna, and if I may link it also to the Bosnian example, how Jews and minorities, Christians in Bosnia, in Europe, share experiences in tragical situations, but can be part of roots that develop fruits for the future. So Bosnia and Europe are part of something that is very interesting according to my my experience. And last point are champions. We have just heard of the nephew of Mahatma Gandhi. We have heard from Algeria, the land of Emir Abdel Qadir al-Jazairi. We have here in our room the son of Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya. These are champions of religious leadership that have been able to implement guidance in concrete challenges. And this is where parliamentarians and religious leaders can provide an effective possibility for contemporary challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I would like to turn to Your Eminence, Archbishop Angelos, please.
Thank you. Friends, please bear with me. The difference between politicians and religious leaders is I don't need to be elected and I don't need to be popular, but I do need to be honest. We have spoken today much about what we do well and what goes right in our countries. And that's a good thing because there is much that is done well and many good things that happen. But I think we also need to look at what we still need to do. It is very good for us to gather today. It is very good for us to speak truth, and it's very good for us to collaborate. But this is a starting point, and it's a very good starting point. I just hope from here we go into greater bilateral and multilateral initiatives, because very little can be done in this setting except to hear. But I think when we go into bilateral and multilateral initiatives that allow us to do even more and to learn from each other, I have much to learn. My church has much to learn. But I also have much to give, and my church has much to give. And I think when we understand that dynamic, it's important for us to learn from each other and to speak truth to each other. Thank you.
And I would like to now turn to Nazile Gaye.
If the essence of spiritual truth is one, then we find it also echoed and manifested in the arts over time. And I want to turn to the words of Saadi, an Iranian poet from 750 years ago, when he said, "Human beings are members of a whole in creation of one essence and soul. If one member is afflicted with pain, other members uneasy will remain." We need the reality check of our societies. If we're not seeing the pain, we need to open the doors of Parliament. We need to have open days. We need to engage more. We need to reach out more. And we need to be able to reach out not to the closed list of communities that we've been in touch with, but so many more. We're here as parliamentarians and other actors who are keen to learn about how to better support parliamentarians in taking up the challenge, as Archbishop Angelos said, to take up the challenge honestly of advancing freedom of religion or belief for everyone. So thank you to those who shared about the steps that you're taking, plan to take alone and together in advancing this. And let's spend the next 2 days to see how to deepen that. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you. And now I would like to ask Rashid Al-Nuami to take the floor.
Thank you very much. Briefly, what I can say that the takeout from this session, which is we share as Member of Parliament and faith leaders, 3 things. We have to learn how to live with our differences. The second, we have to agree to disagree. And the third, that we have to invest in dialogue, dialogue, dialogue. Thank you.
Ultima,
the very last, but not least, Hasana, Madam Hasana.
As we reflect on the growing tide of hatred, religious weaponization, and the humanization of community, I'm reminded that the greatest antidote to fear is not silence, but solidarity. And the most powerful force to build solidarity is young people, especially young women. In my country, Indonesia, we are often told to wait for experience, to wait for permission, but I believe that youth cannot afford to wait for peace. We must create it. Yeah. through Ecobineka, we are doing just planning peace, both literally, symbolically. We are turning shared climate crisis into shared action. We are reclaiming online spaces with narrative of empathy, faith, coexistence. We are showing that when youth are trust, we don't just imagine a better world, we build it. Peace is not distant dream. It's a daily responsibility. Let us not only speak about young people, let us listen to them, invest in them, and walk with them as co-leader of change, because in the hands of empowered youth, faith becomes a bridge, not a weapon. Thank you.
Allora, prima di...
And now, before making two important announcements, we ourselves wish to express our thanks to the panelists and to all those who've contributed to our debate. I must say that this afternoon's discussion was indeed excellent, and we will make sure to take this into account in the final document tomorrow. My first announcement has to do with the hearing, the audience with Leo the 14th, with the Holy Father. This is for all the members of this meeting, Saturday, the 21st of June at 10 a.m. It is important for you to confirm that you'll be participating in the audience, and you can do this at the registration desk. That way the staff can book a transfer for us. We will be leaving at 7:45 from Montecitorio, the plaza outside, the square outside. And those of you who wish to reach the Vatican on your own, with your own transportation, well, you should contact your embassies at the Holy See to make sure they have the license plate of the vehicles that will be entering the Vatican City, because they need to be authorized to do so. Or perhaps a coach at 7:45 from Montecitorio. That's one option. Or else, as I said, if you use your own transportation, then you have to make sure that you tell your ambassador, your embassy at the Holy See what the license plate of your vehicle is. The return from the Vatican to Piazza Montecitorio outside will be provided with the same vehicles from 11:30 and between 11:30 and 12:30. That is for Saturday morning. And in the evening, for those of you who wish to stay and participate for the Jubilee of Leaders, we have organized a concert at St. Peter's Square at 8:30 p.m. Harmony and Hope is the title, and we have leading pianists Beatrice Rama, Brad Leldau, and Francesco Piemontesi, Gabriele Montero, Alexandra Malofid, Aleski Shiradin, Nabuiki Suki. Those are the pianists who will be playing. We don't have transportation for that. If you do wish to participate, you'll have to inform the staff at the registration desk that you wish to participate. Of course, it is open to all of you if you wish to attend, and that way they'll give you an entrance ticket. Thank you very much, and I will hand over now to Safat.
To our gracious host, Italian Parliament Chamber of Deputies, and all the interpreters that has shown the patience to us, as well as the great participation. It's been an honor to co-host, co-moderate this session, and to hear this wisdom coming from every direction, along with my co-moderator, Mr. Lupi. As a fellow parliamentarian, as my contemporary has said, the words are magical. I think that's what brings us together. Le parole sono magiche. Name of God is not the first, but it can be lost, and we still have a chance to make it last. Killing and making peace in the name of race is not the first, but we still have a chance to make it last. If war promises shared suffering, peace promises shared happiness, we must be crazy to refuse it. Thank you very much for giving me the honor.